Yes, so the book is the way I like to think about it is it's an educational legal handbook for lawyers. When I was director of disaster legal services, one of the things that would always come up is that the lawyers that would volunteer to respond to disaster survivors' legal needs were practicing law in other areas other than disaster law, other than issues of disaster law. And so we would have to provide training, whether that be through materials or continuing legal education and those sorts of things. But what I found was that there wasn't a handbook, there wasn't a book that would sort of help pro bono lawyers as well as legal service providers understand the various legal issues that disaster survivors face. So the Disaster Legal Services Program is a collaboration between the American Bar Association and FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which is the federal agency that responds in times of disasters. And what happens is that in the Stafford Act, which is a law that initiates disaster declarations that come from the president and initiates FEMA response, is that disaster legal services would be also initiated to provide pro bono legal assistance for disaster survivors. Now, because the legal services is of no charge to disaster survivors, we depend very much on the pro bono volunteerism of local lawyers, in addition to legal service providers, nonprofit organizations, and those sorts of things. And as a result, many times the people that do volunteer to provide those legal services, their main areas of law is not in issues of disaster law. It is in regards to maybe corporate business law, maybe it's family law, maybe it's immigration law. Now, while all of those do intersect with disaster law, right? They're sort of, usually lawyers are very focused and specialized in their own specific area. And so this book, what it does is that it gives people that are not familiar with areas of disaster law an understanding of what to expect. It also has chapters in here written by experts in various legal issues of disaster law, for example, in flood insurance, in title issues when it comes to trying to prove for homeowners assistance with FEMA, all sorts of different things. And even chapters in here that talk about experiencing compassion fatigue or vicarious trauma because you're interacting with clients, distressed clients in a vulnerable situation. That for them, if they haven't been exposed or haven't worked in times of disaster, they are going to be more prepared to be able to understand not only the communities of which they might be serving, which they might be representing, but then also the various areas of law that they may come in contact with, and understand those areas of law to help their clients respond to the disaster and recover. And when we think about disaster survivors, many of the marginalized and minoritized disaster survivors are the ones that are not receiving access to legal services in order for them to be able to recover from the disaster. And as a result, from the book, we seek to be able to inform lawyers about these various issues, talk about the fact that there are marginalized folks within our communities that may not have access to legal services, and therefore for them to understand that as they're going in as a pro bono attorney. The name of the book is Meeting the Legal Needs of Disaster Survivors, Third Responders. And the reason why we call it third responders is that many times lawyers are seen as not responders to disasters. When we think about responders to disasters, we think of, for example, first responders, police, fire, public safety, EMT, paramedics, you know, the sort of the public safety folks that, you know, that come in and help the initial response to the disaster. And then obviously you have your second responders who are, for example, Red Cross or, you know, construction folks that sort of help rebuild or help clean up, remove debris, those sorts of things. But in our work, we really think that lawyers are there then sort of third responders. You can have the safety and mental health part of the response. We can have the structural part of the response, but many times disaster survivors are going to come across legal issues. And to think about sort of long-term recovery and response, it's important that survivors also receive good, accessible legal representation. My name is David Nguyen, and I'm an assistant professor of urban education leadership and policy and adjunct professor of law here at IUPUI.